And we are back once again with a brand new episode of Liam Picks Fights. Tonight, we're going to be breaking down UFC Vegas 47. I brought along two very special guests. We're going to be talking about Jack the Joker Hermansson taking on Sean Strickland, all the way down to Malcolm Gordon taking on Denise Bondar. We're going to talk about the whole card. We're going to break it down from a betting perspective. Just off the top, I want to say thank you to everybody who subscribes to the show. If you can, go ahead and like this video. Subscribe right now as we're getting started. Number two, I want to thank our sponsor, PrizePicks. All my content is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's the easiest way to get involved with daily fantasy. You're not playing against 500 million other people. It's just your opinion against the projections from PrizePicks. You think it's going to go over, you think it's going to go under. It could be MMA, it could be football, basketball, any other sport, and you can combine from one sport to another. So go ahead, take a look, and if you decide to play, use my promo code Liam. They're going to deposit match you 100% up to $100. And now, without further ado, guys, I want to introduce my two very special guests for today. I got my man making his return to the show, Notorious Picks. Notorious, brother, how you doing? Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I'm always excited to come on the show and talk fights with you. I think we have a banger card. I think we have some fun matchups. I see lots of violence. I see some very interesting underdogs. So it's a recipe for a good night, man. So, I'm excited.
Absolutely, brother. I feel the exact same way. I'm ready to fire. I know we got some of the regulars in the chat as well, ready to go with us. So it should be a great show. And we also brought along the surging Prodigy MMA, off to a very hot start this year. Wanted to shout out the man. Great job so far. Welcome back, brother. And how you doing?
How we doing? I'm doing great. It's been a hot start to 2022. I think I'm 2-0 with profitable cards when I do the show with you. So let's keep that running.
Let's go. Absolutely, Prodigy. This is why the people love having you on the show. Always dropping knowledge bombs. And hey, I got some underdogs flying off my chest today. So I want to see if the man who's had a pretty clear vision so far this year thinks I got a shot or thinks I'm out to lunch. And we've got some crazy fights, guys. So I don't want to delay any further. We can get us started off the top with a 125-pound bout between Malcolm Gordon, everybody's favorite fade in the UFC, and Denise Bondar. The fresh new kid on the block. He is the psycho from Ukraine. Lots of finishes to his record. So a lot of things that people like about this guy. He's entering this fight as a UFC debutant in the minus 260 range. So, pretty significant favorite here, around 70+%. It's like, a lot to get involved on a UFC debutant. But then on the other side, you got Malcolm Gordon, 1-2 in the UFC, scraped out a win over the lesser Figueiredo brother, if you will. And then, I actually think he's lost a pretty credible guys. Amir Albazi put the beat down on him pretty quickly. But he's, I think, 11 in the world right now. Number 13, Sumadarji, knocked him out quickly, but that's kind of Sumadarji's thing. Sue doesn't look as good over the 15 minutes. He looks okay, but he's really like that power threat early. That's what separates him at flyweight. So, Malcolm Gordon, he has been knocked out on the regionals as well, but I don't think he's had these like egregious UFC losses that I can't forgive. It's the manner in which he loses that's a little bit concerning. But I do think that, there were some redemptive qualities about that fight, where he knew his limitations, right? He sprints over in the Figueiredo fight, gets right into the clinch, and starts working from there. He got swept early, but he was able to find his way on top and find some good positions. I think he was able to advance. And I watched his regional fights as well. A lot of people have been knocking the guy's jiu-jitsu. I would say it's not the most positionally sound black belt you'll ever see, but he is a dangerous submission threat, and I've seen him lock up pretty solid Kimura attempts, triangle Kimuras. He has a little bit of a tricky guard game as well. And Bondar, a lot of people seem sold on this guy. I think he does have some good tape out there. He's got some concerning tape out there. I don't know how good the guys that he's beating are. So I think overall, there's a lot of questions on Bondar here, and backing a UFC debutant at this kind of chalk is something I'd never do. So I actually have a small shot on Malcolm Gordon here. I thought the line was going to come in a little bit. It's still continuing to move out a little bit, so I might add just a tiny bit. But yeah, I have a small play on Malcolm Gordon here. at plus 210 on the money line. And I think that there's a chance that he could get a submission here. Bondar makes mistakes. I saw him grappling with a 19-year-old on the Brazilians. I think a Brazilian guy. And the guy's never won a fight since. But the guy was, riding his back for a little while, catching him, making mistakes, taking top positions. I don't see why Malcolm Gordon couldn't do that. He's been fighting the much higher level of competition. And so, it's possible Bondar just steamrolls him here and justifies the price. But I don't buy it at a UFC debutant that's never really fought somebody at this level, coming down to a new weight class, hasn't made the weight in quite some time. I think there's a lot of red flags here. Bondar's also been very inactive, of late. So I don't know. There's just a lot that I don't like. Notorious, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I think you're making some good points. From the money line perspective, I definitely don't think that you should be playing Dennis. There's so many, question marks about him, whether it's level of competition, the layoff, his UFC debut and things of that nature. I, however, took a shot on his submission line at plus 375 just for a unit. And the reason being is I expect a lot of grappling in this fight, and I can see either guy initiating it. Last fight, Gordon, obviously he comes out and, storms at Figueiredo and tries to take him down immediately. So you can kind of see that that's the path he likes to take. And he was successful winning with getting the top control, even though in the first round he got reversed, right? With that first takedown attempt. And honestly, that Figueiredo fight, man, rewatching it, I actually bet on Malcolm Gordon in that fight because I think Figueiredo is a complete fraud. He's kind of like Antonina Shevchenko, you have the good Shevchenko and you have a fraud Shevchenko, and the same thing with Figueiredo here. And but the thing about this fight, in the Figueiredo Malcolm Gordon, there were a couple of key moments that led to Gordon winning. And that is in the first round, Figgy had three minutes of top control, and then he goes for a leg lock, loses the position, and allows Gordon to finish on top. And then Gordon wins that round on all three judges' scorecards. In the second round, Gordon actually got hurt towards the end of that round, and two judges gave that round to Figueiredo. And then Figueiredo, what does he do? He comes out in the third round with a flying knee, slips, falls on his ass, gives Gordon top control for like most of the round, and that's how he loses. So to me, it wasn't like Gordon winning. It was more like Figgy losing, if you know what I mean. Even though, like, I would give Gordon some credit. I mean, he knew what he needed to do. He was pursuing those takedowns, the top control, and all that. I just think that Dennis, from what I've seen, he is better. If you take him down, I think he's got a more dangerous guard than Figueiredo does. It looked like Figueiredo couldn't, really get up at all. Couldn't reverse or anything like that. I think Dennis could throw up some triangles or arm bars, and he could get his own takedowns. I think he's got good entries. I think he's got good top control. I think he's very dangerous. So obviously the money line is too wide, but I think submission is how I see him winning. And plus 375. I mean, 1 unit shot. I mean, I think it's a decent spot, especially now the line got smoked. I think it's like plus 230 or something. So I feel good about it. But if he shits the bed because it's his UFC debut, it wouldn't surprise me. So the money line is off limits for me. So what do you think, Prodigy?
So I know Bondar's faced a bunch of Ukrainian truckers on the regionals, but he's a solid wrestler. I like his sub game, and I love his elbows when he's on top. I played Gordon in his last fight against Shitty Fig. I got him at like 250. I loved that spot, but I actually ended up playing Bondar here. I took him minus 250, and I'm considering playing round 3 decision on him. I think Gordon slows down a little bit, and I think this kid could really put a pace on him with his wrestling.
Fair play. All right, so we've got some dissension among the panel early, but I think that there's a tiny bit of value on Malcolm Gordon as an underdog. Prodigy likes Denis Bondar outright here, and Notorious is playing that submission line. So you could tail us, you could fade us. You could pass on this fight completely because it's pretty low level. Dennis Bondar, we're not really sure what to make of him. Probably more of a prospect than Malcolm Gordon, who's a little bit more of that like faded veteran TKO scene kind of guy. But I just think that with veteran savvy here against a UFC debutant that hasn't made the weight in a while, I don't know about that cardio consideration. It's very possible, but I'd like to see it first at 125. It's been some time since he's made the weight. But either way, we can move along to the next fight here, which is Jason Witt and Phil Rowe, the talk of the town. This is, again, a fight where I took an underdog shot, to be honest with you, boys. I played Jason Witt here at plus 140. I think that Philip Rowe is live to get held down in this matchup. I've watched some of his grappling matches, and I'm not talking about the Gordon Ryan ones. I'm talking about the ones against guys you've never heard of. And then I'm talking also about the fact that, I rewatched his UFC bouts, and I think that Phil Rowe is an okay fighter. I just don't think he's a very exceptional fighter. And I think that he is very live to get held against the fence and taken down. He backs himself onto the fence pretty routinely. His footwork isn't great. And so, Louis Cossey, I just do not rate. The Cossey brothers have both stunted out in the UFC and completely just cardio dumped. And so I don't really, rate much of what Phil Rowe has accomplished in the UFC. And Jason Witt, again, is a chin liability. So I think that's why people don't want to play him here. And now the line is moving in his favor. So maybe I'm wrong, but I think that that's why he was an underdog in the spot, is because people are concerned about the chin. He's got an opponent with a significant height and reach advantage. But I think that Witt is going to be able to get in on his takedown entries here pretty routinely. And I just don't know that Phil Rowe physically will be able to answer that. He kind of gets ragdolled around a little bit by stronger wrestlers. So I expect that if Jason Witt can put together, 12 and a half minutes here and not die, that he should be able to win this decision. And I also think that, Phil Rowe has a very questionable chin in his own right. I've seen Phil Rowe get hurt, rocked, stumbled, knocked out. So I don't know why, Jason Witt is the only one taking shit for having a bad chin in this matchup. He also has a lot more experience and a lot more fights, so he sustained more damage over time. Phil Rowe just had bad positioning and loops in and on his shots, and so he gets caught with his chin up in the air at times, just cold, and doesn't move his head when the punches are coming. He doesn't roll with shots very well. He's a little reactive in that way. So is Jason Witt. I think that if they're in a protracted striking affair, it obviously would benefit Rowe. But I think that if Witt is on top throwing punches at this guy, I'm not sure that that's something that Philip Rowe is going to be able to stand up to. I think he could get TKO'd on the ground as well. So that's why when everybody else is talking about just investing in the decision prop, I would play the decision prop as a small part of what I was going to play on Rowe, or excuse me, on Jesus Christ. I always do this. Jason Witt. Whenever I say the wrong guy's name, I can't think of the other guy's name. But I'm going to kick it over to my man Prodigy first this time. Prodigy, how do you feel about this matchup? Where are you taking action, if any?
I'm with you, man. I already took Jason Witt money line plus 130. I took him in his last fight. Loved that matchup too against Barberena. I'm willing to go with the chin here at plus money. He's a decent grappler. He should be able to get Phil Rowe down at any point of the fight if he wants to. It's just he's got to get a hold of him first. Phil Rowe's pretty powerful. He's been training with Rodolfo Vieira and Bo Nickel in his camp. That concerns me a little bit, but I'm willing to play the plus money here because he's got a 50% takedown defense. Koshi, I wasn't impressed by that guy, and he was beating him up in the first round. Gabe Green beat Phil Rowe. I think
who the fuck is that guy?
I am willing to play the decision. I'll put half a unit on it. I love the Phil Rowe. Jason Witt decision only minus 200. If you want to throw that in some parlays, not a bad play either.
Hell yeah. I love it. When Prodigy's on my dog shot, I'm feeling good. Notorious, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, I wish I started taping this matchup a little earlier. I didn't get to it until today, and because initially I was just I'm not really interested in playing anything here. But then the more I watched, the more I realized that Phil Rowe, like, he's very green, man. Like, I don't think the guy, like, I think Jason Witt is definitely a more skillful guy at this point in their careers. And you made an excellent point, Liam, about the chin of Phil Rowe. Everyone gives shit to Witt about it, but like Phil Rowe, man, like he got dropped by Shabazian, got hurt. You know, he got dropped by Gabe Green too. Like, he doesn't utilize his reach as he should. You know, he has a 10-inch reach advantage here, but he also had a reach advantage on Shabazian, and the guy does not know how to control the distance well. You know, he kind of reminds me of Jamie Pickett in a way. You know, when they go forward and they throw combinations, they look very dangerous. But when you back them, they look shitty, man. And his defense.
Great analog.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of Jamie Pickett, but I think Phil Rowe is like a worse version of that, you know, honestly. And not only the takedowns, I think Jason Witt could drop him, man. Honestly, he dropped Barberena, and Barberena is, I mean, he's definitely not the same Barberena that fought Luque. I think after that fight, you know, Luque took his soul, but like still, Barberena is a tougher guy than Phil Rowe, and he dropped Barberena with a nice overhand right. So I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes Phil Rowe. I was looking at that KO line, and it opened at plus 1,000. I mean, Jesus, that's very interesting. And some books have it. Let me check that quick. I think some books still
I like where your head's at, brother.
Actually, right now it's plus 700. It got smoked. You know, I think people saw the same thing. But like, yeah, you know, I do think that Witt is the side. I think he's going to win round one at a pretty high clip because Phil Rowe does not make good decisions. He's a kind of a slow starter. He backs away, and I think he's going to get taken down, might get cracked. And, yeah, I think Jason Witt is definitely the side, especially at, you know, what, plus 130 that Prodigy got. I'm not sure what you got, but, yeah, if you got
plus 140.
Yeah, if you got that kind of line, for sure, that's the side. But even right now, I'm gonna pick Jason Witt. I think he's got James Krause in his corner. I think I liked what I saw against Barberena. He had very good 2 rounds. In the last one, he had to overcome some adversity, which he did. And yeah, experience edge, more paths to victory. And yeah, I'm gonna pick him here, and I think you gentlemen gonna cash your tickets.
Hell yeah, brother. Let's hope so. We got Hunter Man saying, if you like Witt, for me, play by decision only. And we're just we're going to disagree just slightly, man. I think that Rowe could get finished. I do think that Rowe could get finished here. So I like the enthusiasm in the chat. I know that we got some disagreements, some dissension. I wish you guys luck on your Phil Rowe plays. But yeah, I'm going to take the Vanilla Gorilla at plus money until proven otherwise. And I think that this is a decent enough spot for him here. Let's hope that he can keep things together. Next up, we got Danilo Marquez taking on Jalden Almeida. And, you know, Jalden Almeida has taken a lot of action. He opened up in the minus 210 range. He's now in the minus 450 range on some books. And, you know, I think that it's a little bit unjustified. You know, there's not a lot of tape that exists on this guy. He was an underdog in the Contender Series. I liked him there. Bet more than a unit on him there as an underdog at the plus 185 range. So he was like 35%. And now we're saying he's going to cover 80% against a guy who's been a profitable underdog in the UFC. It's just like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So I took plus 330 on Danilo Marquez in the spot, guys. I'm on the first 3 underdogs of the night. We're going to see how you know, the action's going early on, but I'm just willing to invest in these opportunities when we got a Dana White Contender Series guy who, again, it was one fight ago against a Russian that's really not that proven, who had a loss in 2018 that's listed as an amateur fight, but that was right in the middle of his pro career. So it's like, they're like this undefeated Russian prospect. No, if you did the research on Contender Series, you knew he wasn't undefeated. So then you're like, all right, I'm going to play this other guy. And then now we're being asked in his first fight in the UFC, when guys are known to slip on banana peels, to back him against a grappler who's bigger than him at this huge distinction. It's like, I'm just not doing that. So yeah, I might even add a little bit. I see this line is continuing to run. If they keep giving me higher plus numbers, this is the kind of bet I might add too small. And yeah, I might hedge a tiny bit on Almeida KO, but man, I really think that Danilo Marquez on the money line is pretty clearly the side. But I could be wrong, and I'm interested to hear how you guys feel. Notorious, what do you think?
Yeah, so definitely zero interest in playing Jailton money line. There's absolutely zero value for me there because of too many question marks. I think the guy has only won in the first 7 minutes in all his fights, so you really don't know how he's going to look past 8 minutes or so. But then at the same time, Danilo Marquez, he's got pretty shit cardio himself, so it's not like Jailton is going to be the one gassing and Danilo is going to be putting on him. I mean, maybe it could happen. To me, the reason why I didn't play Danilo, well, at least not yet, I didn't play anything on this fight, is because I think Jailton's physicality is just going to be too big to overcome here. I wanted to play over 1.5. It was at plus 135. I was thinking about it, and then the next morning I wake up and someone absolutely dropped a hammer on it, and it's now at pick'em. So now I don't want it. So I was also thinking maybe Almeida by decision, because I could see a scenario where first round, there's some opportunities for a finish. He doesn't finish because Danilo, is hard to probably finish. He's never been finished by submission, right? He's been knocked out, but I could see some clinching, grappling, no one finishes, and then both guys gas and kind of becomes more of a staring contest for second and third round. And I was thinking about Almeida by decision, and I know 5 Dimes had plus 550. I don't have access to 5 Dimes anymore, but now it's in like plus 300 range, so I don't really have much interest in that either. My pick is going to be, I think Almeida's going to win. It might be greasy. It might be, like a decision where Danilo looks to be like value, but I still going to pick Jailton. But if he shits the bed, I'm not going to be surprised. I have no place on this fight, so I'm just going to, enjoy the violence. And like I told you, I think in DMs, I'm hoping, I know you have a bet on Danilo, right? That aside, if you didn't have it, I was telling you that I'm hoping that Jailton's going to run through this guy so then I can fade him next time, because there's some question marks that, I think in the UFC he's going to get tested, and I think he might get knocked out in the next few fights because I don't like his defensive tendencies on the feet, but I just don't see Danilo as the guy to do that. So I'm passing, but pick is Jailton.
Fair play, brother. And yeah, I mean, if this was an evens fight, I would probably pick Jailton too. But the odds makers were smart enough to know that people would pick him at the open. They make him minus 215. That's already pretty steep chalk, and people just laid it. And now I think it's probably a lot of parlay action that's pushing this further as fight week goes on. I don't think many people are playing straights minus 450. But, interested to hear how my man Prodigy feels about this one.
Yeah, I mean, Jailton's a physical specimen here. I think it's a great sell high spot on him, though. Minus 400 and plus is a little crazy. I haven't played Danilo yet, but 360 I see at FanDuel right now. That's a high number. I did end up taking over 1.5. I would have loved the plus 135. I took it at plus 100. I took Fight Goes the Distance at plus 275. I think they're going to kind of mate in the grappling a little bit. It's going to be a bit of a boring fight, just going to stare at each other on the feet. I do think if you play the Jailton side, you go with the KO. I saw that at plus 300, plus 350. I mean, I wouldn't touch the money line. He might find a sub, but I think KO is your best bet if you're playing that side.
I would tend to agree completely. And just looking back over the course of their careers, right? Like Jailton beats this one guy. He doesn't really have many other credible wins. So he's kind of got that padded Brazilian record. And I'm not saying that Danilo has a good record, but it's 2-1 in the UFC. And he lost to Kennedy and Zechiku, who's 3-2 in the UFC with wins over fucking like Paul Craig. Like he's good at anti-grappling. Like he's just good at that. So this dude was on his back, tires himself out in that fight. Like that's a uniquely tough matchup where the guy's got insane cardio and is a good anti-grappler known for third round comebacks. That's a tough out. That's a tough out. Jalden Almeida was like making mistakes against this Russian dude that isn't that great. And he's like falling off the back and stuff. I'm like, I don't know why that justifies your price going up. Like, I bet on him in that last fight, and I didn't come out of it like, yeah, I'm such a genius. I was like, oh man, he made a couple like core mistakes there that could have cost him the fight if the other guy stayed on top. Like, the guy just chose to disengage. That's a mistake. I don't know, man. Danilo's not doing that. Danilo is not doing that. So I think that Danilo is a pretty decent back taker. I think he's got a decent single leg. You know, the only guy who was able to stay upright in that first round was Chikadze, who's just holding hands on the cage, like outright, while the ref is like, stop, like slapping the hand away. He's like, no, like it was crazy. So I don't think that Danilo is that bad. I think that the times that we've seen him like completely gas were like justifiable. Like the Kennedy and Zechika one, and then he just like completely ragdolled that guy, Chikadze, but it was also like he kind of got tired from trying to take the guy down while the guy's cheating over and over. So I don't know, man. I just don't demote the guy that much, and I hit 2 units on him at plus 200 against Slow Mike, so I'm playing with house money on this.
I think both of your guys' plays are pretty good. I think the over 1.5 is the one that I had the most interest in, and I honestly had no idea it's going to get smoked overnight. I was thinking about it, man, but you know, it is what it is. Sometimes it goes like that. But I think that's a very smart play, because if Danilo wins, I do think it's gonna go over 1.5. So you both can cash that. So best of luck to you guys. And
Checo's not bad. Talking like Checo's bad. Checo's not bad.
Right.
Especially not at the grappling. I mean, Rashad Evans a motherfucker, even at 42, I guess. But either way, I think we can move on from that fight. I like the underdog, and you know, all you guys laying the minus 450, God bless you. God bless you. I wish you luck. I feel like you might have a heart attack on Saturday night. Alexis Davis, Julija Stoliarenko at 135 pounds. Man, this is an interesting fight. I've definitely considered getting down on this one. I have a small play on Davis by decision here at plus 105. That line has started to take action. I wonder if plus 105 is still out there. But either way, this is an interesting fight. I'm going to kick it over to my man Notorious first. Julija, obviously, you know, not coming off a hot run in the UFC, but fairly high level of competition for a UFC newcomer as well. So what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, I've been tempted to play Stoliarenko the whole week. And I was waiting to see if I could get plus 200. And then finally I got plus 205. So I put a unit on it because I rewatched her last fight against Avila, and in my eyes, her stock went up after watching that. I think she had a lot of good moments. She won the second round. I think it was 1-1 going into the third, and she was on the way to victory in my eyes, and made a terrible mistake, got taken down, and almost reversed the position, but ended up giving up her back. And then I think Herzog saw her put her toes in the cage, and like he stopped her, and then like gave the position to Avila, and then she choked her out. But honestly, like, I saw some good things from her. I think she is the more physical girl in this matchup. Alexis Davis, she's fought at 125. I don't think Stoliarenko could ever make 125. The girl like almost dies to make 135. She's fought at 145 before. So in the women's MMA, when I have a physicality edge and I get like a big plus number, I do like it. The same thing happened last week with Jasmine Justavijas. There it was even more glaring. Like Kay Hansen had no business in being that kind of a favorite, but Alexis Davis obviously has the experience advantage. She probably has the cardio advantage. She does throw, good volume as well, but a lot of her fights are pretty close, man. Like you look at her victories or defeats, they're all pretty close fights. So at plus 205, I think that's the side on Stoliarenko. Her back is against the wall. I think she can pull away a decision here. Maybe she can get an armbar. I mean, that's her specialty. I don't think that's going to happen, but, you never know with women's MMA. A armbar from guard seems to be like a thing that happens a lot more often than in any other spots. So I think plus 205, 1 unit is a decent shot on Stoliarenko here. Alexis Davis getting older. She is 55 years old. She's 37, but it seems like she is. And she eats a lot of punches. Her defense sucks. So it could be a pretty greasy kind of a fight. And plus 205 to me is the side here. So I took a shot.
I don't hate that at all. I think that makes a lot of sense. Prodigy, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I haven't taped this fight yet, and I'm dreading every second of it. So I'll stick with you guys on this one. I got one other fight left I haven't done either.
Fair play, my man. And yeah, this one is a complete greaser. I just think that Davis hasn't looked bad. You know, I did better against Pannie Kianzad. I thought that was a very close fight. I thought it could have went either way. And I don't think Pannie's a bad fighter. And, you know, she beat Sabina Mazo as well. We haven't seen Stoliarenko get that win in the UFC yet. So obviously she's going to be coming in hungry, desperate for one. But, you know, there's also just questions in my mind about whether she's UFC level. She doesn't really throw very often in combination. She does hit pretty hard. Like she hit Avila with a couple hard shots. And that would be my concern here for the most part, is that Davis gets hurt by something. But I think that Davis is more reliable to throw in combination and to extend the exchange. Whereas, you know, I think it's going to be one big winging shot more often from Stoliarenko. But either way, you know, should be a fun enough scrap. I think that both ladies come to party and neither one of them does much of the blocking of punches to the face. So should be a fun scrap for those two ladies. Next up, we've got a 185-pound bout between Chidi Njokuani, finally making it to the UFC, 27 fights into his professional career. And he's fighting Marc-Andre Barriault, former, I think it's two-weight champion for TKO, and also, you know, kind of on a little bit of a run now in the UFC. So I know a lot of people are playing a side on this fight. I have not yet bet either side here. My pick on Die Hard MMA was Chidi Njokuani with an ever so slight lean because he was the plus money underdog. But this line is about, you know, evens now. So you could really play either side here if you have a strong lean. My lean is not very strong. I think that Chidi, if he keeps the fight at distance, is probably going to be able to land clean shots. I don't rate MAB's defense very highly, but I do think he has, you know, just a pretty awkward style matchup for Chidi, where he's going to press forward, head forward into the chest, and just try and run this guy into the clinch, into the cage, and throw shots at him. And Chidi's had problems dealing with that in the past. I thought he looked better on the Contender Series. I thought he looked pretty good in the fight before the Contender Series as well. Granted, not like, you know, impressive levels of competition there. But I do think, you know, the guy on the Contender Series didn't look horrible on his tape, and he really wasn't able to get much going against Chidi and kind of got picked apart for all 3 rounds. I think one of the things that's underrated about Chidi is when he's on top, his ground and pound is pretty vicious. And he's fucked a few people up from the top position down the stretch in a fight as well. If he knocks them down, he's pretty good at finding that finish from the top position. So I think that this is, you know, a fight that could go either way. I think both guys could get finished here. You know, neither one of them is like that huge one-hitter quitter guy, but I've seen Chidi throw some pretty slick combinations that knock people out and hurt people really bad. The one on the regionals that I was referencing, I forget the gentleman's name, but Chidi basically throws a left hand with a kick that lands right behind it. And the camera is so close up. It was against Christian Torres. The camera is so close up, you can't even see the kick starting. You just see it land on the guy's face. And you're like, wait, what the heck happened? I had to rewind it to make sure I was seeing what I was seeing. But, man, Chidi's pretty fast, but he is a little bit older to be making that UFC debut as well. And I think that we've been seeing Mark in the best form of his career. So I'm going to kick it over to my man Prodigy first. How do you feel about this matchup? Do you like either side? And what are you doing from a betting perspective?
So I cashed on Chidi on the Contenders, and I've cashed on MAB in his last 2 fights. I think this is the perfect fight for Barriault. He can just pressure Chidi, just cage push him, maybe land a takedown or two. I don't know who has the better wrestling in this fight, but it's honestly pretty close. But I love the pressure here from Marc-Andre Barriault. Chidi got pressured when he was in Bellator by Koreshkov and Carvalho. I think this is going to be a pretty clean fight for Barrio. It's probably my biggest play on the card. I'm also looking at the round 3 decision props, and I'm definitely hitting this one hard.
Well, that's so interesting to hear you say that, because that's exactly what I played the last time there was a Marc-Andre Barrio fight. I think it was plus 210 to great success. I was very happy with that bet in the end. Notorious, how do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, so I think I agree with you, Prodigy, in terms of the Barrio side. I think he's got the physicality advantage here. He has fought at light heavyweight and middleweight, whereas Chidi has fought at welterweight and middleweight. So I think the strength advantage and is going to allow him to be able to get that cage control. He push him against the fence, get some takedowns, and I think a lot of money has been coming in on Chidi, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think maybe looking at Barrio inside the distance could be interesting. It's plus 300, I guess. I don't know what the round 3 decision line is. If one of you guys has that number, that would be interesting to know. But I could see that happening as well. I am picking Barrio. I don't have a play yet on it, but I am considering. I do want to see them at the weigh-ins, at the face-offs tomorrow, just kind of gauge the size. I know Chidi has the reach advantage, but I think the strength and physicality is still going to be on the other side. So I will pick the Canadian in the spot.
I think it's plus 162.
Okay.
Yeah. Good
Not
man.
bad, not
Good
bad.
man, Prodigy.
Got a unit on that.
Fair play, brother. Fair play. See, that's the thing, though. They did correct for it a little bit, right? Last time it was plus 210. Now we're only getting that plus 162. They're starting to get a little hip to what we've got going on there with that round 3 or decision on Marc-Andre Barrio. Because he's really not this guy who's going to hit you with one hammer that drops you. He's just going to touch until you go away. So I like your angle there. I think that that's his path. So great way to play him. And, like I said, this is a fight where if you have a strong lean either way, it's a playable money line on either side. So cheers and good luck to you. I think if you guys got in on Chidi early, at least you're going to end with that closing line value, and you can take that to the bank as well. But we can move along, guys. We got the next fight in the 145-pound division. We got a local fighter, Mike Trezano. One of these Tiger Schulman's guys. Like to root for those guys. Certainly don't always like to bet on them, but I do kind of like Mike Trezano at the plus 165 number I got. That number's come down a little bit. I know a lot of people on the Hakeem side. I get it. The guy hits hard, and he's pretty reliable to throw. He's a decent enough kickboxer, and he's got pretty decent anti-wrestling as well. I think that Mike Trezano, he also has pretty functional kickboxing game. The guy's 3-1 in the UFC as an underdog. And I think that was a big part of my rationale for betting him here. He's just outperformed his odds and his expectation significantly. I also bet him in the Ludovic Klein fight. So got a little bit, of one-handed to me there. I think that fight easily could have went the other way, but that's why I bet on the big underdog. I felt like it was a fight that could go to either man. And I kind of feel the same way about this fight. One of the things that stood out to me about these guys is that both of them fight to a lot of split decisions. Both of them, get in these stand-up, tit-for-tat kickboxing battles that judges don't always get right and don't always interpret correctly. And sometimes one big shot either way could change the complexity of the round and how it's scored. The other thing is Trezano more likely to introduce the threat of the takedown, in my opinion. Me and Hakeem just doesn't really attempt takedowns, statistically speaking. He defends them at a pretty good clip, but I think that if anybody's going to be cage pushing, trying to control those situations, I think it's probably going to be Mike, who's a little bit taller, who's a little bit more likely to come forward, in my opinion. So I like Mike Trezano here at that plus 165 number. I didn't put a gang on it. It's just a 1-unit play for me, but I think that that's a pretty decent spot. As the number starts to come down, it becomes less and less appealing. I do think that, I could see why Hakeem would be a -125 in the spot, -135, but I just don't really get out to Hakeem being, 60% in a fight that's probably going to play out in a close decision more often than not. Notorious, how do you feel about this one, buddy?
Yeah, I see this fight being pretty close. Don't really have much interest to bet it. I respect Dawodu, and I like Trizano. He cashed for me as well against Ludwig Klein. When they were reading the scorecards and I heard 30-27, I definitely thought I lost. But fortune was on our side that day. But he was coming off like a long layoff and he had some bunch of injuries, so I don't think we saw the best Trizano that night, and he was still able to get a victory. And like you were saying, yeah, like the guy always fights pretty close, and the same with Dawodu. So in a close fight, I think value is probably on an underdog. The one thing that I can't get out of my head is like the way Hakeem got finished by Henry, man. Like, is that a complete like fluke, an outlier, or is there an issue with his chin that we haven't seen? It might one day again show up. So I don't know. And I think Trizano in general does have more paths to victory. He can mix it up with grappling. So I don't hate your shot at all. Personally, I'm just gonna stay away for now. I think there might be a good live opportunity. I don't see, either guy like just washing the other guy. So if you get like a big plus number in between rounds and it's a fairly close fight, like I think that could be a good entry on either guy. So I'm gonna look for that. But pre-fight, I guess I'm gonna pick Dawodu by decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the other way.
And to your point, there's a 0% knockdown rate on Mike Trizano so far in the UFC. Granted, he's not fighting, iron-fisted guys, but Ludwig Klein was rated as like a knockout threat and a finisher coming into that fight. And Mike Trizano was able to neutralize a lot of his offense there. So I do think that this is a fight that more often than not will go to decision. But, we have seen that 0.6% knockdown rate for opponents against Hakeem Dawodu. He is the one that has been knocked down in this matchup. And he was submitted, like you mentioned, by Danny Henry. So I think that, I don't expect that Trizano is going to submit him here. But I do think that it's possible that he hurts him. He's a long guy and he throws with a decent little bit of power. So Trizano has recorded a knockdown in the UFC, I believe, as well. So I'm interested to hear Prodigy's take on this one. Do you think we're out to lunch? You like the favorite here, or do you think Mike Trizano's got a chance to make this one close?
Well, we got the first of two Ultimate Fighter winners on this card. Love the jersey, guys, out of Tiger Showman's. It's right around the corner from my house. But I think it's going to be just a low-volume kickboxing match. I laid some juice on the over here at -190. I don't really see a finish happening. You're right with Trizano, might go for some grappling if it happens, but I think this is going to be a boring fight, and the split decision's only +400. If that was around like 750, 800, I would definitely be taking a little crack at that.
I like where your head's at, and I don't really have access to those split decision lines, but Trizano by decision +300 it seemed a little bit crazy to me. Like a fight that I think is going to go to decision, well over 50% of the time. And you're giving me the underdog there at just, huge discount. I'll take it. So I've got a little bit on Trizano's money line. I got a little bit on Trizano's decision line. And, I think that over has kind of been hit. But if I'm going to be playing any totals, that's one that I'm going to be considering as well. Because I do think there's a decent enough chance it goes over. But don't want to cost myself profit if my man Mike Trizano comes through with that big New Jersey knockout. You know what I'm saying? But either way, we got Bios Johns taking on John Castaneda up next. And, one of the themes that's really standing out about this card is like it's the night of the unreliable favorite. I don't really think that a lot of the favorites that we've talked about so far justify these big chalk plays where you have to put a lot of trust in somebody. You got to say, not only are they going to win the fight, more often than not, I think they're going to win the fight greater than, like, let's say it's a minus 150. Now, what's your edge, right? 60% of the time. So what, they win at 65? Like, you got to start really like having some trust, some faith, some reason to believe that they can clear this price time over time. And I think that John Castaneda is a guy that fights close. I think that he's a guy who's kind of hard to look good against. He really is a scrappy guy. He is awkward in his positioning. He'll like come in and out of stance. He's got tricky footwork. And so none of it's perfect, but it's a little bit awkward and hard to deal with. I think his wrestling is not as good as Miles Johns. Miles Johns is a pretty damn good wrestler, but I think that he's got, wrestling to offer. I don't think he's just going to be a fish and get thrown around the octagon either. I think he's going to compete in those positions, and he's going to make Johns work. And I think Johns is like a guy who likes having a nice rest position. He's a guy who likes to be able to find these static moments of the fight, because otherwise he just does like, patterned movements. Like, he just throws set combinations and things that can be countered, things that can be evaded and reset on. And I think that somebody like Castaneda, who's going to fight out of that southpaw stance at times, who's going to fade away, I see a lot of times Miles Johns is doing this, and he's just moving that lead hand away from his face and giving you this little pump fake, but it's constant. So there's just this opening on the chin. And I do think that somebody like Castaneda, he's not like a, knockout bomb threat, but he will keep putting hands on you over the course of a fight. And, he's been hit hard. Nathaniel Wood just went off on him, and the dude stayed in the pocket, kept fighting, kept throwing back. And I just think that he's a guy who's pretty reliable to fight for your money. I don't think that Miles Johns is a reliable favorite. I'm open to hear your guys' takes on this. I'll start with my man Prodigy. How do you feel about this one? Do you like Miles Johns here, or do you like the other side? Do you like the underdog, John Castaneda?
Yeah, I definitely think Miles Johns is starting to fall in love with his hands a little bit. If I taped this fight before when Castaneda was plus 200, I definitely would have grabbed that. I don't know around this plus 165 range if it's enough for me. If he uses those leg kicks, he could really slow Johns down. Johns is slightly the better wrestler in my opinion, but not enough to really dominate this fight. That plus he'll slow down. No play for me right now, but anybody that got Castaneda at plus 200, that's a great play.
Well, that is just about where I entered. I hit plus 195, man. I saw the market crashing, and I was like, damn it, I wanted that plus 200, but I had a feeling that the line was going to come in, so I put it in anyways. Got to shout out my man Prodigy, looking fresh to death. He's got the nice dress clothing on him. Just win, baby. One of the top all-time handicappers on betmma.tips. Blessed to have him watching the show, but he says Liam wears Christmas jumpers in February. That's me, man. I'll be repping this Conor McGregor sweater, 365 days a year if I have to, just because it's been good luck for me. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to break out the next fight. We got Julian Arosa, Steven Peterson. Oh, Notorious, my brother.
Oh, man. You got to let me talk about my boy John Castaneda. He trains at my gym. I see the guy all the time.
Oh, shit. Oh, we've got an inside source.
Holy shit. My boy John Castaneda, I think he's going to present some trouble to Miles Johns here. I'm not a fan of Miles Johns to begin with. I tried to fade him with Anderson Dos Santos. Obviously, that did not work. But to beat someone like Miles Johns, first, you have to be durable because the guy does throw heat, Second, you have to make him work. Like you were saying, you're making good points about Johns. He likes to fight at the slower pace where he can time his explosions, and then he resets. And then he just kind of waits. He tries to pull you in. Then he lands like 2-3 shots, and then he just waits again. I think John can present a lot of problems with his footwork. He's tough. He's got cardio advantage here. He can fight from both stances. I honestly don't rate Miles Johns that highly. He had a perfect fight last time against Dos Santos. He went after his lead leg, early and often, he pretty much fucked it up within 2 minutes, and Dos Santos couldn't walk on it, so he had to switch stances. And Dos Santos, he is a punching bag to begin with, and when you go into your worst stance, it's gonna be even worse. So, and it was an open stance, so Miles Johns had the right hand ready for him, and he finally found a finish. I honestly doubt that he's gonna be able to put away John, and because John is super tough. So my biggest worry is that John allows the slower pace, and doesn't do enough, because sometimes he does go to those close decisions. But honestly, I got plus 206 on this. I got a couple units on that. I feel really good about it. Obviously, the market agrees with me. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to cash the ticket, but plus 200 doesn't make sense to me, because he is a tougher guy than the two guys that Miles Johns just beat. He has more experience than Miles Johns, actually, not in the UFC, but in general. He's fought some, tough competition on the regionals. And I do like his style to present trouble for Miles Johns. I wouldn't be surprised if he finds an opening and finishes Miles Johns, because I do have questions about his chin, and I think Miles Johns doesn't have the best vision of seeing shots coming in. He kind of shells up, and there's openings with uppercuts and knees and front kicks. So I think John, like, I've talked to the guy. I mean, he seems to know how to beat this guy, and now it's about execution, obviously, and who is sharper on the day. But like plus 200, I'll take that every single time on my boy John Castaneda. So let's go.
Dude, I think you've got yourself a great ticket. You got a great number on that bet as well. And, the market certainly agrees with you. That number has like crashed way down. And I think that on top of it, you just have a guy who's unreliable to back up that price. I think people are getting fooled by the name Adrian Yanez on the record. If you go back and watch that fight, there's a lot of pinning to the fence while Adrian Yanez punches him in the head. And the crowd goes, Miles, Miles, and then he wins the fight. It's like, it's not a fight that's like super decisive. I think that, I don't know, man. I just think there's a lot of unanswered questions. He's had a pretty soft run through the UFC, with all due respect. Kevin Natividad, he grabbed his glove, plain as day, and knocked him out. That was a clear foul, but as I said on Clint Show, what are you going to do? Wake him up and be like, Kevin, you won the fight.
Still counts.
Yeah, exactly. So he gets away with one there. But I mean, obviously that was sort of elementary. Kevin didn't really have much to offer him there. And then, we see, like you guys mentioned, Anderson Dos Santos, complete punching bag in that fight. The leg gave out early, but he was a punching bag before the leg gave out. So it's like, it was just a disaster of a fight. The fact that he took so many of those shots, I think, is also, doesn't speak to the knockout power as much as people think, because Anderson was just standing there getting hit clean over and over and over, took a lot of clean shots before he went down. So I think that it's very possible that, Castaneda could chin check him here. But if not, I think it's going to be a competitive decision. So I'm going to move along to a 145-pound fight between Julian Juicy J Arosa and Steven Ocho Peterson. I'm going to let my man Prodigy start us off on this one. And I'm going to keep my take stored in the clip until after my man lets loose. How do you feel about this one?
Arosa, I cashed him in his last fight against Jourdain, that third round finish. I cashed Peterson against Hooper. I think he was evens in that fight. He's had a couple injuries. He's only fought once in the last 2 years, but extremely durable guy. He's got solid grappling, stand-up's okay. He's very hittable, but he never gets KO'd. But I had to lay this juice on Julian Arosa. I know he's extremely unreliable, but I just think he has the advantage in almost every realm here except the chin. I played him at minus 286, put 2.5 units on him there. I could see him getting this done in multiple ways, whether he wants to just decision him, pot shotting him on the outside, or he grabs one of his darces. I see any way this goes, I like Arosa here.
Interesting. Notorious, how do you feel about this one?
I'm gonna have to disagree a little bit here. Not that I'm picking necessarily Peterson to win this fight. I just don't feel so strongly about Arosa at this kind of number. Personally, to me, Arosa is the perfect guy to play as a dog, and at minus 300, I understand that technically speaking, I do think he's a better fighter. It's just at that number, you have to be what? You have to assume he wins like what 80% of the time to pull the trigger. And I mean, maybe you can arrive at that, but I can't. There's only two plays that interest me here. I haven't played anything, but if I was playing a Rosa side, I would play Rosa by decision. I think that Peterson is super durable, and I think he's only been finished once in his career, and that was a long time ago, if I'm not mistaken. And the other play that I would be interested in is Peterson by KO, and I think that's like plus 800 or something. That's an interesting play potentially. Other than that, I expect this fight to be pretty fun. I think there's going to be a lot of exchanges. I do expect Arosa to probably land more shots, be a better striker, but I just can't, play that kind of number on the guy like Julian Arosa. But I wish Prodigy the best of luck, and I do expect him to win. It's just I would probably play the decision line if I was playing Arosa. So that's just my take on that.
Yeah, man, I tend to be with you here. I get why people like Julian Arosa, but I'm gonna just like lay out my case for why I would not lay the chalk on Julian Arosa this weekend. Julian Arosa has been knocked down in 4 of his last 5 UFC bouts. And that's including like all the wins. Like in his wins, he gets knocked down except by Nate Landwehr. And I believe Nate Landwehr stumbled him. So it's not like Nate didn't land something. He landed one shot, stumbled him, then he gets hit with a flying knee and the fight's over. So it's like this guy gets hurt in basically every fight. And if he was more defensively responsible, it would be one thing. But I feel like he plays into the fact that he is defensively irresponsible by getting into high exchange rate fights. And if you guys remember that Sean Woodson fight, who I don't really rate Sean Woodson as high as a lot of people do. I know he's had some success early. I'll look forward to trying to fade him again. But I think that Sean Woodson, very nearly had that fight, but he's a complete gasser. And so the pace of the fight was insane and it made him gas. And then I don't know, man. He dropped him like 2 seconds before he gets finished. If you guys rewatch that fight, like I think it's like 10 or 20 seconds before he gets finished. He drops Julian. Julian like falls back, stands back up, and he's so tired that he just submits him right after. I think that is like not what we're going to see from Steven Peterson. I don't think he's a gasser like that. I think that he's got pretty decent cardio. Like you mentioned, his durability has been checked at times. But he only has 1 knockout loss. So I think he's pretty good at recovering in fight. But I think both guys are live to get a knockout here. I was discussing with somebody earlier, plus 190 on either guy to win the fight by knockout. I think is a decent enough play here. I think that Peterson by knockout at plus 950 is absurd. If you look at the guys that have knocked out Arosa in the UFC, most of them cashed at plus 330. Almost every time he's been in the UFC, it's been lined around plus 300, plus 400. Against what's his name, Devontae Smith, it was lined minus 105 or something, right? Like they had a feeling it was going to happen that night. But I'm saying, plus 950 now, just because the guy doesn't have a bevy of knockouts on his record. Martin Bravo didn't get TKO'd on the ground because he was tired. He got knocked out cold by a spinning back fist. Out. And he had nothing left to offer. Like, we're saying that can't happen to Julian Arosa in one of these extended exchanges. I don't buy that. I do think that he could justify his price if he grapples here, but I don't know him to do that either. I know him to get in these high exchange rate fights, and I think that that's always going to be a danger for him. I think he's going to land more strikes in this fight. Martin Bravo was running up a tally on him as well. But Peterson stays in the fight, stays in somebody's face, keeps throwing back. And, he rocked Martin Bravo with a couple right hands. I think people, weren't noticing that on the tape. I think that those right hands did a lot of damage, and Bravo was taking them too willingly. And I think Arosa might do the same thing. And if he takes one of those too willingly, he might go to sleep. So I'm on Steven Peterson at plus 260 for one play, and I'm on Steven Peterson by knockout plus 950. I think I'm going to be adding the fight ends by knockout at plus 190 to cover my ass, because I do think Arosa is going to have plenty of opportunities here. I think they're going to stand in front of each other and go to war. So fight of the night looks like a likely possibility for me, but I know that Arosa's beaten some better guys. He's just capable of losing to anybody. And he lost to a guy who was 5-4 on the regionals, and he's lost to guys, Sung Woo Choi, that's his only knockout in the UFC, I believe. Freaking all the other guys that have knocked him out, I think they only have 2 knockouts a piece in the UFC. They're just like not prolific knockout punchers can knock this guy out. So I think that Steven Peterson can knock him out. Prodigy, how do you feel, buddy? I know you got something on the other side.
I mean, Peterson's only got 1 knockdown in 20 rounds in the UFC. That's almost 2.5 hours of cage time. I'm willing to bet 80% against that.
Fair play, but what I think is partially the difference is he's had some unique stylistic matchups where he's been forced to grapple for extended periods of time. And I think that that's a big factor. When he's been on the feet, he's been more effective. So, in fact, if you look at their UFC knockdown rates, it's actually, I think, slightly, or I'd have to double check that, but I think Peterson had a pretty respectable knockdown rate in his own right. Yeah, Julian Arosa, 0.3% knockdown rate to 0.4% knockdown rate for Steven Peterson. So based on the time he spends at distance, which is a lot smaller. So it's a skewed sample size, but I think that there's some things to like about the underdog here. And I wish you the best of luck, my man. Here's the other thing, though. What you got to understand about sports betting, and I'm talking to the audience now because I know you understand this, boys, but is that when we're playing these opposite sides, there might be value on both bets, right? Prodigy got minus 286. The number's probably going to close minus 350 or something. So he's going to get the best of the number. If you're going to play the favorite, if you're going to play the underdog, you want to try and get the best of the number. So he's going to beat some closing line movement. That's critical to winning long-term. And I'm trying to play, smart underdog plays against, liable favorites. And that's what I think I see. So, we're going to have to line up on opposite sides here. And I'm going to hope for the best, because I got a smart man going against me with smart money. But we've got a main event type fight here. Brian Battle, Tresean Gore. This was supposed to close out the tough finale with that Giga and Edson card back in, I think it was last year. And now we've got instead Brian Battle, Tresean Gore is going to happen. We're going to find out who would have won that season of tough. And, Brian Battle, Tresean Gore, both coming off the same recent win over Gilbert Urbina, not the highest level fighter. Both these guys a little bit more limited on experience. I think that this is a weird fight to break down. Tresean Gore coming off some injuries here. I think that that's kind of hard to know how to cap. You'd assume he's going to come back well, but he also doesn't have a ton of experience. So I think ring rust could be a factor. I'm interested to hear how you guys feel about this one. Notorious, I'll kick it off with you.
Yeah, initially, I watched that Ultimate Fighter season. I don't know if you guys have or not, but when I was watching it, I had one perception. I thought that Tresean Gore, he could win the season and whatnot. But now rewatching some of the tape this week, I realized that I think Brian Battle is the side here, and the reason being, first, the experience edge. It's a pretty significant experience edge. Tresean Gore has 3 professional fights. The guys he's beat are complete bums. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. If you look at their records, I think only one of those 3 guys has a win. The other guys are winless, and I think Tresean Gore is a classic front runner. I think he has a lot of power. He's very explosive, but I think that Brian Battle can weather the storm, and I think he can put it on him in later rounds. I think I tweeted out something about there hasn't been any finishes outside of round 1 this whole year so far. So 2 cards we've had, and we either got a round 1 finish or a decision, which is a huge outlier. I went back and I actually looked at 2021, and we only had 2 cards where that happened the full year. And now we have back-to-back cards. And I don't expect that to continue. So I have been targeting some round 2, round 3 spots. And I think Brian Battle is one of those spots which can cash. I have a straight play on him at plus 135. I know the number was better, throughout the week. I just didn't get to the tape in time. So I got 2 units on that. I also have, a little bit of a sprinkle on his round 2 at plus 950 and round 3 at plus 1200. I think both have value there. And I just question Trayshawn's ability to go hard 15 minutes. I think the first round, yeah, he might win the first round. I wouldn't be surprised. But Brian Battle is the kind of guy who I think is not going to get knocked out, and he's going to bring the dog fight. And I think Trayshawn is not going to like that. And I think, Brian has the cardio advantage. Trayshawn is coming off that knee surgery. Who knows how he's going to look? So there's too many red flags to play Trayshawn. I think Brian Battle is definitely the side. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that.
I've basically hit all underdogs today, boys. So I'm freaking. I'm feeling where your head's at. Prodigy, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I got my guy Pooh Bear Battle in this one. I'm not sure why he's a dog in this fight. It should be maybe a slight favorite or maybe even just evens. Gore coming off the knee injury, don't like that. That fight against LJ Jones, as soon as he gets put on his back, he accepts guard, wraps that closed guard around, and he was getting just elbowed viciously. And the rest of the guys, terrible. You're right. The guys that he fought on the regionals, Battle, he's going to just put pace and pressure on him. First round could get ugly, could get knocked out in the first round, but I love this line for him, plus 145. Took the round 3 decision prop, plus 300. He's going to come and put a pace on this kid.
Didn't people say that Prodigy is the round 3 decision master? So I do like that. I do like that.
That's what I've heard.
And yeah, for me, boys, this was a case of getting a little bit greedy. I wanted that plus 150 number. And now most of the lines are getting hit down to plus 130, plus 135. So I'm going to wait and see what happens. I think that public money, people that watch The Ultimate Fighter, it's probably going to be on Trayshawn Gore. So that's why I'm kind of hoping there's that late public money that pushes the line back a little bit. But yeah, when I discussed this fight on Die Hard, I also felt like Battle's got to be the side here. He's been more active. He's been able to fight through adversity effectively so far in his career. He's submitted a couple guys who are class on the ground. And granted, it's more about cardio than it is about, grappling chops. But I do think that that's just another path for him to win the fight. He could do damage to people. He could thud him up a little bit. And physically, I feel like he's made a transformation for this fight. Where he used to have that little, that extra layer, and now he's kind of slimmed down, and really looks like his body composition is optimized for this fight. So yeah, I think that those are all reasons to look at a dog shot here on Battle. But again, acknowledging the other side here, if you're playing Trayshawn Gore, that Gore knockout line, that Gore first round is probably just a smarter way to target it, because that's his win condition that he's most likely to maximize. So if you want to get that plus money return, it's just difficult to lay chalk on somebody with 3 professional fights in a UFC debut when they are coming off a surgery. It's just like Notorious said it perfectly. Too many red flags. It's going to be a pass on the favorite for me. And I'm probably going to look to get involved with that dog shot on Brian Battle. Just have a trifecta, just a running tally of dogs all the way up the effing card. And, I did feel when I first looked at this card that if you blind bet the dogs, you could probably win money because there's a lot of pretty significant dog lines. And I do think that, a lot of unreliable favorites. So this is another one where I think it's hard to justify the favorite. I'd say that Brian Battle is at least evens with this guy, and that's why the underdog shot is appropriate. But we can move along. We've got one of the hardest fights to cap on the card, and I know that's going to sound silly, but I really feel that way. We've got Brendan Allen fighting Sam Alvey, and yes, Brendan Allen's a better fighter, but the fight's at 205. The guy's saying in interviews he's coming off the couch, hasn't trained for the fight, that he lives far away from his gym, so he goes to jiu-jitsu every so often, and then he goes into camp where he goes and trains full time. So I have a lot of concerns about that. Personally, I think that Brendan Allen is a fragile guy. I would never lay minus 400 on Brendan Allen, period. And I think that Sam Alvey is so hard to bet on. I have bet on the guy before based on what I thought was a pretty clear, clean rationale. The guy is rocking and hurting light heavyweights with his power still. But then he's fighting at middleweight and looks like complete dog shit. This fight's not at middleweight, so he doesn't have to cut the weight, which is, I think, good for Sam, honestly. I think that he thought 185 is better because he fights smaller guys. Now he gets to fight a smaller guy at the bigger weight, so he doesn't have to cut. I actually think that benefits Sam Alvey to a degree. He's also a pretty decent anti-grappler. The problem for Sam is that he has nothing to offer except for a lead hand. And that's kind of hard to operate with against a guy who can kick the legs, the body, the head from Brendan Allen. But Brendan Allen just makes mistakes. He loses focus. He gets, in his own head. I think that the guy is just a complete banana peel waiting to slip on at minus 400. I know a lot of people that think it's going to be free money because Sam Alvey's so bad. I'm just not betting either one of these guys. If I was to take a bet, it would probably be a very small one on the Sam Alvey KO line. But it's only plus 650. I didn't like that number. I would have wanted, plus 850, plus 900, something a little bit higher to sprinkle on that. But yeah, I do think there's a chance Alvey knocks him out. He's just so unreliable to throw strikes at this point in his career. And he is so reliable to back himself onto the fence where he could be clinched up. In the small cage, though, I don't know, man. I just think I do think Brendan Allen in a parlay is a fucking banana peel waiting to happen. That's all I'll say. Notorious, how do you feel?
Yeah, I feel like I have absolutely zero interest in playing anything here. If you force me to play something, it would be Alvey because, Brendan Allen, like you were saying, he's coming off a couch. And, he just got knocked out not too long ago. So where's his confidence, right? He might not, he might be gun shy. Alvey is good at being counter wrestling and whatnot. So it's probably going to be mostly a stand-up battle, if not the whole 15 minutes, unless, Brendan Allen gets chin checked. We know what to expect from Sam Alvey. He's going to be fighting at slower pace. He's going to be looking for that check, right hook. He's always got the power. The fight being at 205, he might actually help both guys because it might help Brendan Allen's durability. But at the same time, what do you got to say?
Au contraire, my friend. Do you remember it was a 195-pound catchweight with Pillowfish Sean Strickland, and he got knocked out, dude. I know it was a volume of strikes, but still. I just wanted to make that point. That was the catchweight at 195. That's all.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that Sean Strickland is a pillow puncher, though. I think Sean Strickland.
No, I don't think so either. That's just the narrative I've been hearing this week.
We'll get to Sean Strickland here in a bit, but to me, it's a clear pass. Honestly, I have no interest in playing Brendan Allen at this number, and I do lean his way. I think he's probably gonna maybe get a greasy decision. I don't know. Definitely would not catch me putting him in a parlay or anything like that. But if someone is taking a shot on Sam Alvey KO, I don't hate it. That could definitely happen. Brendan Allen, when he loses, he loses usually inside the distance. So that's what happens. So, but yeah, I have no interest in playing this. I'm just going to enjoy whatever happens in this fight, whether it's a slow pace or, a banger fight. I'm just gonna sit back and watch it.
The only other thing I want to consider as I kick it over to Prodigy is just that when you compete up a weight class, sometimes it can be exhausting as well. And that's the other thing I think about. Sam Alvey's got some experience up at 205, and he's just like a vet of the game. Brendan Allen, I think that could be part of his problem. He's slowed down in some fights. The Dawkins fight comes to mind. The Holland fight, like he ended up submitting him, but he looked like he was slowing down in that fight and was getting pretty desperate for the finish. So I think that, it's very possible that the weight change also affects the cardio of Brendan Allen. Prodigy, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I haven't taped this one yet, but Sam Alvey might be calling my name.
Dude, I wouldn't blame anybody that plays Sam Alvey. I would not play Brendan Allen under any circumstances. I've played Sam Alvey and lost a tune of money betting Sam Alvey. But if I was to go back to the well one more time, this would be the kind of matchup I did it. So I'm just full disclosure, it would be a dog or pass situation for me. No surprise there. We can move along, guys. We've got Shavkat Rachmanov, the pride of Kazakhstan, taking on Carlston Harris, 2-0 in the UFC. For both of these guys, I think that Carlston has arguably, looked a little bit worse in his fights, but I think he also had a little bit more resistance. Michel Prazeres was coming off of a long layoff, looked fat and out of shape. Again, we say always respectfully and with a big smile, but he just looked like he had no interest in being in that fight. And so he, pretty much gave it away instantly. I think that this is going to be a lot more resistance for Shavkat. I think that Carlston Harris is a liability because he's so loose with his offense. But I think that both guys are kind of the same way in that regard. I think they both like to get after it. They both are offense first fighters. And so for that reason, having such a big money line is, again, just a little bit surprising to me. So I did get involved earlier in the week on Carlston Harris at plus 205 and his inside the distance at plus 375. Best available on inside the distance is now plus 333. And I'm not sure what's on the money line, but it had come down to like plus 190 on most of the market. So I think that, the slight adjustment makes sense to me. Carlston Harris, dangerous guy to be plus 205 against a lot of people in the division, but especially somebody unproven like Shavkat. Shavkat's been hurt. He's been rocked. He's been sent flying on the regional scene before, and he's been controlled in the clinch. I think he's given up 25% control time or something to his opponent so far against Alex Cowboy Oliveira. He allows underhooks to happen, and Carlston Harris is basically a strict upper body wrestler. He doesn't do a lot of shooting the takedowns. He does a lot of grabbing you and trying to throw the shit out of you. But if you give underhooks, that's how you get thrown. And I say this as a guy who spent my whole life trying to learn how to throw people. So it's something that you've got to dig underhooks. And I haven't seen that from Shavkat. Again, he's focused on delivering offense. So there's a chance he knocks Carlston Harris out on his way into the pocket here. But I think if Carlston gets his hands on him, it becomes a very interesting fight. And I also think that Carlston could rock him. So Shavkat kind of does a little bit of that standing upright stuff. He likes to insist on getting in close. But I think that, a guy who's got 14 finishes, no wins by decision, against a guy who's 7-3 in decisions and has finishes in his own right, dangerous in every position. I just don't see how you could justify that huge money line price when the quality of competition has been comparable, if not slightly better for Harris. So I know that he's the older guy. That's, I think, what's putting people off. Also, Shavkat's got a lot of hype, got the rub from the organization, but that doesn't always work. Ask Cyril Gahn. Notorious, how do you feel about this matchup, my brother?
Why did you have to bring up Cyril Gahn?
I'm sorry, brother.
Please,
I'm sorry.
Man, that's just a dagger to the heart. But I agree with you, man. I am a fan of both of these guys. I've cashed on Shavkat and I've cashed on Carlson Harris. The line is absolutely nuts. I mean, I got involved when it was plus 241. It was even at plus 250 for like a day. And I got a unit on that. I think both guys are extremely dangerous. I have issues with defense for both of these guys. Carlson Harris did get, wobbled a bit by Christian Aguilera's uppercut. And in general, his defense on the feet is not the best. I do think he's going to get knocked out eventually. It might be here. But, Shavkat, on the other hand, his defense also sucks, man. He is kind of slow with his reactions. And, finally, he's fighting a guy who can actually match his physicality. He fought two former lightweights, right? He fought Prazeres and Hobboy, right? And like both of these guys, like especially Prazeres, he looked so much smaller. He had a 10-inch reach disadvantage, and he was still landing some shots on Shavkat. So to me, the line doesn't make sense. I think Harris is very live. He could find a finish himself. I was telling somebody this week that if you bet Harris money line and sprinkle a little bit on Shavkat KO, you're probably gonna come out ahead, and that's what I think is gonna happen. I'm gonna pick Harris. I have a bet on that. The line doesn't make sense to me. Money came down on him, which makes sense to me. It's gonna be a banger of a fight, and I'm looking forward to it.
Fair play, my man. I tend to agree with you. Prodigy, do you feel the same way? Do you like the Shavkat side? What do you think here?
Yeah, this is the fight I'm most excited for on this card. Just two great prospects. Harris is an awkward striker. He literally clubbing dudes on the feet. He loves the club and sub. Decent cardio. He's got regional wins over Michel Pereira and Wellington Turman. Both massive guys for welterweight. But this line, as you guys said, just doesn't make sense. I took some Carlson Harris at plus 200. I could see him finishing it any type of way. He could get one of those Darce chokes. He could finish him. But I'm willing to play him at this price. I can't lay Shavkat at his minus 50 or whatever he's at now.
I feel the complete same way, man. And it's just like when you have a guy that if he's on his back, he's dangerous. If he's on the feet, he's dangerous. If he's around the clinch, he's actually like not just like he can hold you, he can fucking submit you from the feet. The guy has one of the most money Darce series you'll ever see in MMA. And I've seen him do it to like competent opponents on the regionals as well. Man, I just think that the guy's being a little bit overlooked. And he's one of these guys who's been historically overlooked. He was pretty short favorite. The first time he was in the UFC, finishes the guy in the first round. And then he was a pretty short underdog to Impa Kasanganay and finished him in the first round. And he's got a submission and a KO so far in the UFC. It's like, wow, we're just going to fade that. Going to give him a plus 205 tag in his third outing. That just seems wrong to me. So that's almost like irrespective of opponent. But then you see Shavkat, and yeah, there's some things to like about him, but he's not like the next coming. He's like a good enough fighter. But I actually like a lot of people are like, it's Shavkat and Khamzat. And I'm like, I don't know about that, guys. I think Khamzat would probably do dirty things to this guy right now. If I'm being honest with you, I think he'd spike him on his head.
I think my favorite thing about Shavkat is his ground and pound, and he's got vicious ground and pound. But dude, like his defense, you can't just ignore his defense. His defense is fucking horrible, and like he's slow, like he's there to be hit. And like Carlson Harris, the punches he throws, like Prodigy was saying, they're awkward and like they come from weird angles. And he's long. He's like he's the first guy who can match physicality with Shavkat in the UFC. So for him to be this big of an underdog, it doesn't make any fucking sense. So I think we're spot on here. It doesn't mean we're gonna win, but like,
yep.
It still doesn't make sense to me. It should be closer to like a pick'em, maybe a slight favorite Shavkat. I don't know, but I don't know.
Well, here was the thing that stood out to me, right? The fight is minus 250, basically on average, like across the market, to not go the distance. And then you're giving me the underdog instead of plus 200. You're saying 70% of the time it's ending inside the distance, but plus 375 on the inside the distance for the underdog. It's like, what? Just didn't add up to me. So
Agreed.
I'm all in with you guys. Let's do it. We got the co-main event here. It feels like we're taking a step back almost. Shavkat, that fight feels pretty big. A lot of hype behind it. A lot less hype, I would say, behind this one. But Punahele Soriano does have some UFC knockouts, some fun wins. He's kind of got that fun personality. He's a bubbly guy. Took a shit kicking from Brendan Allen, which is concerning. But also, kind of slowed down significantly in that fight. I think it had more to do with the body kicks than anything else. He just had no answer for them and got ripped apart with body kicks over the course of that fight. Brendan Allen, when they engaged in the pocket boxing, would land, but he was getting landed back on. It was when he was at kicking range, he dominated the fight. I think that Puna, for me, there's some concerns here because I haven't seen some questions answered I'd want to have answered to back him at a big chalk price. I haven't seen him engage in the grappling very much and not with very competent grapplers. He was able to hold down Jamie Pickett, but I think that was a lot to do with the physicality edge there. And also just he's got a better wrestling background, just was able to get on top of him. I think that, Maximov, he hasn't fought a very high level of competition. But Puna didn't really fight a high level of competition before he came to the UFC either. And so it left me with some question marks. Maximov has very limited tape out there, but he is a competent grappler. He does compete at a fairly high level in the grappling scene. So I think that, in a pure grappling match, I would favor Maximov. The question is whether he's going to be able to force a wrestling match from Puna. Puna has good instincts on his wrestling defense. He's got a good down block. He's got a good sprawl. But I question how that defense looks over the course of a fight. Brendan Allen's the only guy who tried to press that in the UFC. And Brendan Allen is, again, an upper body wrestler, kind of like Carlston Harris. You don't see Brendan Allen firing a nice double leg where he changes levels. He's really putting underhooks on people and trying to take their back standing. So I think that, we're probably going to see a little bit of a different wrestling threat in this matchup where, Maximov likes to do that. I like to think of it as just like a good way to hide your head. He just shoots himself underneath somebody, kind of like Mateusz Gamrot. But he is not as competent at finishing right now as Mateusz Gamrot is. But what he does is he just gets underneath somebody, holds the single, and then looks for back takes, looks for sweeps, looks to pull himself underneath. And I don't see why he couldn't do that to Puna if Puna's tired. So good chance that Puna kills him here early if it's forced to stay on the feet, because I don't rate Maximov's defense very well. He looks like he might have a brick for a head, but I haven't really seen him exchange a lot with competent fighters. He's fought a bunch of cans on the regionals. His head kick knockout was over a guy who did not look like he was an active competitive athlete. So I think that it's certainly going to be a big step up here for this guy Maximov, but I don't know if he's ready to answer it. I feel like I have open questions on both sides, and I think Puna probably knocks him out, but I'm concerned that if Puna gets extended into the second round here, that it looks like Maximov hiding his head on single legs and popping out on the back. And I don't know what Puna would do in that case. I've never seen him grapple, so it's just hard for me to say. How do you guys feel about this one? I'll kick it to Notorious first.
Yeah, I just rewatched the Puna versus Allen today, and from memory, I was actually mistaken. I thought that Puna had an okay first round, and then just after that, it was all Allen. Actually, it wasn't the case. Puna did look terrible in the second round, but he actually got some sort of a second win in the third, which was actually impressive to me. He landed some good shots in the third. And like Brendan Allen, for whatever shit we might want to give him, he's definitely a lot better than Maximov with his striking. Like Maximov, I don't know, man. I think the guy borderline the UFC level, to me, I don't know. He's just kind of green. And I mean, he beat Brundage, but like, what is Brundage? I mean, the guy, I don't really see that guy as being good at all either. And Maximov, like, yes, he is. He's a smart guy. I'll give him that. He knows where he needs to go. Like, he looks for entries. He knows that he can't just stay on the feet and win a fight. He looks for entries, and he's got decent entries at times. At times, he looks desperate with his entries, but he does have a relentless approach to his grappling. But he also loses positions. I've seen him have a decent position and then get reversed or lose a position. And Brundage, I think in the third round, he like reversed him and was landing some good strikes. I don't see Maximov as like a Nick Diaz or Nate Diaz kind of cardio. You know, I don't see that. You know, he might train with them, but he is a tough guy. Yes, he's smart. He's going to pursue the takedowns. But I just think that at this point in their careers, Puna's got better experience, and he's coming off a loss. And I'm sure his coaches are going to correct some mistakes because Puna, the issue with Puna that I have is the dude throws everything 100%. Like, there's no jabs and setups. He's just trying to take your head off with every fucking punch, and like it's not gonna work. Like, he overextends himself, and Brendan Allen was able to step back and counter, and like Brendan Allen is not a counter striker, you know. So if Puna corrects the mistakes and he just throws, you know, 20-30% less power, he's gonna touch Maximov a lot. And I think a sneaky potentially play could be Puna in like round 2 or 3. I know that we don't think that Puna can get it done after round 1 by finish because all his finishes in round 1. But like I said, I was watching that Allen fight in round 3 and he landed some hard shots, man. And like the guy carries his power late. So it could happen. And Maximov does slow down too. So I don't see a huge cardio edge here. But at the same time, money line is a little bit dicey to me because I haven't seen Puna engage in a lot of defensive grappling, and you know that's kind of what Maxima is gonna bring. So, but I'm gonna pick Puna, and I think he's probably gonna get a finish, maybe in round 2.
I hear where you're coming from for sure, my man. Prodigy, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I tweeted out about this co-main event earlier in the week, and a lot of the Diaz army came for me. I don't think either of these guys really has a big future in the UFC, to be honest. Very binary fight. I think if Puna keeps this on the feet, he'll probably win. If Maximov gets him down, it's probably his fight to win. Maximov sub plus 550 isn't the worst bet I've seen. I don't really have much interest in this. I'll just enjoy it as a fan, honestly.
Fair play, my man. And I'm actually seeing that the line is coming down a little bit on Puna, just ever so slightly. You know, it looks like he's dropping to that minus 180 range across the market. And, you know, I would be more interested in playing Puna if he gets down to like that minus 150 range. That's where I think it would be almost playable for the Puna side here. But, yeah, I think that, you know, until proven otherwise, Puna is probably the better fighter. But the question is just, can he deal with this kind of stylistic matchup where, you know, Maximov's just going to be pretty reliable to drop down to his leg every time he tries to throw a committed punch. And there's just not much that Puna does that's not committed. You know, he like throws everything with all power, and he doesn't have much diversity to his offense. That's like my real criticism of the guy is he really throws the left hook and the right hand, or the, you know, he'll just like hop into range and throw it. And I don't know that that's just going to work as you step up your levels. And Maximov, like you said, he's a smart guy. He's probably watched the tape and seen that that's all he does. You know, I think he threw a couple body kicks because Brendan Allen threw so many at him that he was like pissed. He wanted to answer him a little bit, but I think otherwise he really didn't throw nary another strike in that fight.
Yeah, one thing I want to add to that is that, I mean, Puna is pretty green in his career, right? So we can see, you know, massive improvements from guys like that. And I think he's with a good camp. And yeah. I mean, obviously, physical attributes are fantastic for the guy. He's got power, you know, better than 90% of the guys in his division. He's very athletic. So, like I was saying earlier, if he can just set up his strikes better instead of trying to rip your head off with every single shot, then I mean, we can see a massive improvement here. Whereas Maximov, I'm with Prodigy. I don't really think this guy is any good. I think he's borderline cuttable. There's a few guys like that on this card, but I don't know. I just don't see it. I think he got a push from the Nick Diaz. I think he was on the Nick Diaz card, right? Was that what it was, right? And It's kind of like the one. Who was that bum that was fighting Nate Diaz Connor card from Nate Diaz gym? He was fighting one. Yes, he's kind of like the same type of deal. So I just don't see it with this guy. If there's one guy who's going to make massive improvements, I think it's going to be Puna. So I think he's probably the pick here.
I will just say, man, the only other concern I have on the Puna side is that Puna, when he got tired against Jamie Pickett, he bailed himself out with takedowns. And I think if he ends up resorting to that, I don't think that's very likely. But Jamie Pickett doesn't really have much threats to offer on the feet. He just did it because he's a wrestler and he's comfortable doing it, right? And it's his backup. It's his natural feel. I think he tried the level change on Brendan Allen maybe once and didn't get very close, and also just was bitter and trying to throw winging shots to pay him back every time. I think that that's, again, just where the concern lies for me, is that if he tries to bail himself out with takedowns here, Maximov is a credible grappler in ways that I don't know that Avila was. And so I think that he has some threats to offer if he's put on his back. And if he takes the back or something like that, he's going to be a danger to submit Puna. Because for as good as we think he is, and naturally wrestlers are pretty good at just working their way through position. If he gets caught in a jiu-jitsu position with a guy who spends a lot more time there, which you would think that Maximov does, for better or worse, it's the reason why he's worse at the stand-up, is that he's a jiu-jitsu guy who spends all his time doing it. And I think that means that he can maximize his win condition. Prodigy hit the nail on the head. Sub or decision is basically his win condition here. I really would have a hard time seeing him hurt Puna in any fashion.
This could be another spot where we see a round 2 or round 3 finish, and we're due for those. So that's just one more thing I want to add to that.
Round 3 decision.
Hey, that's a Prodigy special right there. I can't say anything there.
Yes, sir. All right, boys, we are coming up on this last fight of the night. Just wanted to say we've got 32 people rocking live with us in the chat. Appreciate each and every one of you guys. If you haven't already, go ahead and like the channel. Alexis says new favorite MMA picks channel. That means a lot, Alexis. Thank you so much for saying so. And we're about to break down this main event. We got Jack the Joker Hermansson. Guys, I took 20 pages of effing notes on this guy. I watched every UFC fight that he's had. I like Jack, right? I've modeled a lot of the grappling I do after what Jack does because he submitted a couple of guys I respect. David Branch, black belt, submitted him in the very first round. GM3, black belt, with a bunch of subs in the UFC, submitted him very first round. So I think that Jack Hermansson's submission game is very credible, and it shouldn't be overlooked. However, it works in part based on physicality. And I think that was one of the things that, you got to factor into those results, right? Jack is a physical specimen at 185 compared to a lot of guys. And so when he gets a hold of these guys, he's, again, a upper body wrestler, a theme of the show today. But Jack, he'll fire off a double leg every here and again. It's ugly, right? It's not his best work. He fires the double leg onto his knees and then gets caught in extended doubles sometimes where he doesn't get the finish. Where Jack is really effective is that he has an underhook pull where he'll trip you off your feet. And he's got the dig the both underhooks and then lift or throw you. He's strong as shit, right? That's the bottom line. I could see him lifting up, throwing Sean Strickland potentially early. But I really think that unless he gets a sub early in this fight, it's going to be an uphill battle for Jack. I think that the way I see this fight is that Sean Strickland, he's not a perfect anti-grappler, right? He stands a little bit upright in his stance, but that's actually beneficial against an upper body wrestler, right? Where if you're a little bit more crouched over, they can try and pummel in and get that underhook a little bit easier. Whereas if you're upright with both hands like this, like Sean tends to be, where are you grabbing? What are you getting a hold of? There's not really an underhook to take. And so what I think is going to happen a lot in this fight is that Jack is going to be trading leg kicks for jabs, but Jack tends to get scared off of punching exchanges, especially when he starts getting hit. We saw him recommit to getting punched in the face against Marvin Vettori, but the reason he had to recommit in that third round is because he got dropped in the first round when he tried to. And I think that, Sean Strickland, he doesn't have the world's heaviest hands, but he also doesn't hit with pillow fists. I think that the guy throws consistent volume, and I think that he's probably going to be picking Jack apart here unless his leg gets chewed up. I think, that is a possibility, but I haven't seen anybody really affect that game plan to full success on Sean. I think he's a glutton for punishment. I think you'd actually have to shut down his leg to get him to stop coming forward. Just hurting it's not going to be enough. And I just think when I look at these two guys, I see one guy in Jack Hermansson who more than one time in the octagon has been scared off of a fight. Be that the Jared Cannonier fight where he had some early grappling success, right? The problem is if he can't get you down and hold you down, he is in a world of trouble in a lot of his fights. I believe the stat is that he is 1-4 in fights where he has less than 60 seconds of control time. So if this guy is not getting on top of you, he is not winning the fight more often than not. Even his damage, right? He's got a lot of TKOs. I've seen him. They're ground and pound most of the time, right? He has landed a couple shots on guys that were tired. He's kind of a pace monster. That's the other thing about Jack, is that a 3-round fight, the guy can put out a lot of output that buries people over 15 minutes. Over 25 minutes, he actually slowed down a little bit against Marvin Vettori. He was able to stay in there and keep fighting, but Marvin was, gassed, I thought, in round 3 and able to get that second wind like Notorious was talking about before in the last matchup. So it's I think that when I look at Sean Strickland, do I run to go play him at this heavy chalk price? No, I don't. Do I envy the people that hit that -175 opener? A little bit. I think that was probably a good entry point if you like the Sean Strickland side. Do I fault anybody now who's looking at Jack Hermansson +195? I don't fault you, but I'm not going to play that personally. I would be invested on Jack's sub here if I was to get involved. I think that he could win a decision, but it's limited. Everything I've seen from Sean Strickland's bottom game is that he is either going to attack from bottom relentlessly if there's short time left in a round, or he's going to get feet on hips and work his way back to the feet. Granted, this is one of the better top players he's going against in the UFC. So it will be interesting to see how his game translates, but I think he trains with the right guys. The guy has been in the UFC since 2014, ladies and gentlemen. His losses are to Santiago Ponzinibbio, Kamaru Usman, and Izzy Dos Santos. That's a fucking murderer's row. The guy has fought a lot of killers over the years and done quite well. He's not new to 85. A lot of people think that. The guy was at 85, doing well in the UFC, but he felt like he was the smaller guy in a lot of matchups. So he moved down, went to 70. It was an experiment, did it for a while, had the motorcycle accident, came back up. I think that this guy is a legitimate contender at 185. I think that Jack is going to be a gatekeeper type of guy at 185. Jack can sub anybody. He can sub anybody in the first round. I think that was kind of an outlier performance against Gastelum. I think more often than not, Jack probably loses that fight, but Gastelum gets on top and instantly gets subbed by him. It's this guy's got a good bottom game. He's got a good top game. I just think that if this fight is on the feet, it's Jack Hermansson walking him around it's Sean Strickland walking him around the octagon behind the jab. And I think that that's how I envision the fight going more often than not. Notorious, I'm going to kick it to you with that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to have to disagree with a lot of your points here. When I was looking at the lines, to me, it screams a lot of recency bias. And I think Sean Strickland's stock is overbought, personally. Jack has only been this type of an underdog only once in the UFC career. You tweeted that out recently, right, today? And he won that fight against Jacare, right? When you're talking about, he doesn't look the best when he gets hit. But look at the guys that TKO'd him. Cannonier and Thiago Santos. Those guys are borderline light heavyweights, right? Thiago Santos moved up, and Jared Cannonier, he was a heavyweight, dropped down to middleweight. Now, the physicality on those two guys, I don't think it's comparable to Sean Strickland. So I do think that in this type of matchup, Jack has the physicality edge, which is, I think significant. I also think that yes, Sean Strickland is the better technical striker. But one thing about Sean Strickland is that he is this fucking psycho dude where he doesn't mind getting hit. Like he kind of invites it, you know. He like loses his focus and he gets hit. And Jack, he throws fucking bombs, man. Like he landed some shots on Vettori in round 3, 4, and 5 that I don't think that Sean Strickland can take those same shots. Like Vettori has a blockhead, man. The dude is like you can't knock him out for whatever reason. And I just don't think that Sean Strickland can afford getting hit with the same shots. Now, if Jack is constantly on the back foot, then it's a problem because walking backwards, Jack is horrible defensively. And it's a kind of a theme of a lot of fighters on this card, you know, from Philip Rowe, you know, when he walks backwards to, you know, to this one. And I just think that Jack is dangerous throughout the whole 25 minutes, man. He carries that power late. He has tremendous cardio. So really, Sean Strickland either has to put him out early or fight, you know, a pretty perfect fight to me to win this convincingly. And I had 2 plays on this fight. I have 1 unit on Jack at plus 180 and 1 unit on under 4.5 at plus 100. I think the under has a little bit of recency bias baked into it. Jack historically is 77% finisher, and his last few fights have gone to decision. And with Sean Strickland, you have 2 back-to-back decisions as well. But you watch the Uriah Hall fight, he had multiple opportunities to finish Uriah Hall, but when he got him hurt, instead of putting more combinations on Uriah Hall, he decided to shoot a takedown. I'm not sure why he was doing that. I feel like he could have definitely finished Uriah Hall. But even in the Uriah Hall fight, I believe from round 2, 8 minutes or so, Uriah Hall had like a stretch of 4 or 5 minutes where he looked pretty decent. Like he was walking Sean down and he landed some good stuff. And then in round 3, they came together. It looked like there might have been a head clash, but actually, I think it was a shot behind the ear that got Uriah Hall. And then, you know, he looked like he wanted to check out, but, you know, Sean didn't get a finish there. But my thinking here is that if for Sean Strickland to cover this price, he most likely has to get a finish. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty competitive. He has to be fighting a perfect fight, and I see him making mistakes. He loses the focus. So I think that my 2 plays here, at the worst, I can break even. And at best, I think Joker can find a finish, and then I can cash both. So I don't hate it. I mean, I was waiting for the line to get better because under 4.5 open at Pick'em, and then I got the plus 100. So, you know, I waited, was patient, got the number I wanted. And plus 180 on Joker, I don't hate that play as well. So, you know, I'll take my chances on that. And we have a streak of main events, back-to-back underdogs hitting in, you know, 2022. So we have that streak going. So
brother, they've been putting money in my pocket. That's what I'm saying. And if I'm going the other way, that's the thing. I just man, I'm rooting for you, buddy. I hope the streak continues. I got an underdog mug right here. Nobody likes underdogs more than me.
Yeah. Did you actually play Strickland? You didn't play Strickland though, right?
No
Yeah.
bet on this fight. Considered playing Strickland 4-5 decision, but you know, ultimately, I'm probably going to end up passing the fight entirely. You know, I just have a feeling that Sean's going to end up walking him down. Like I've just seen these performances from Jack where he tries to engage in the clinch early. He can't get it. And then he's like dissuaded. And I thought that the Edmund fight, I backed him there pretty significantly. I thought he was going to run through Edmund because Edmund can't wrestle. And early, Edmund was fucking him up real bad. And I was scared. And then thankfully he was able to grit it out. Like this is the thing you can say about Jack Hermansson. I'm about to kick it to Prodigy, but the guy literally broke his rib against Talis Lates and comes back to finish him in the 3rd round. The guy's a soldier, but he's 33 and he's been through a lot of UFC wars. You know, Sean Strickland's been in the UFC since 2014 and he has one more fight than Jack Hermansson, who joined in 2016 like 6 months into the year or 7 months into the year. So Jack Hermansson's been more active, and he's had a lot of these like rough and tumble fights. So that's, again, one of my concerns here.
But would you agree that this is the toughest challenge so far in his 185 journey?
Sean Strickland?
Yeah.
Oh, at 185, 100%. But I think that would I rate Jack Hermansson in the top 3 of guys he's fought? I don't know that I would. But like top 5, of course. Top 3, I don't know about that. Strickland's fought good guys.
No,
like Santiago Ponzinibbio at the time was top contender. Kamaru Usman goes on to be the world champion. Like I even think that Easy Dose, like I backed up a truck on him in his last fight, and that referee screwed me out of the inside the distance. That guy should never work again. But I just insane, man. I feel like those are 3 guys that I would like consider playing against Jack Hermansson at 185. Like I wish I was kidding. I mean, obviously not Santiago today. He looks a little bit on the fritz, but you know, Kamaru Usman, yeah, he would beat the fuck out of Jack. Just being fair, you know. Did you see what fucking Khamzat did to the guy? My God.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I'm not gonna deny that. I'm just, you know, just from the odds perspective, I just don't know if there's that much value in betting Strickland past, you know, minus 170 or so in this type of matchup, you know, because he's fighting the most physical guy and like the guy who has so much experience and cracks, man. Like I'm telling you, man, the shots that he hit Vettori with, I don't think Strickland can take those same shots. And he's a soldier, man. Yeah, he might drop around, but he has that switch in him, and he just has to come forward. If he allows Strickland to come forward the whole time, then yeah, he's fucked because he can't fight on the back foot. So, but yeah, let's hear what Prodigy has to say. He's been smiling and waiting his turn.
Drop the hand.
Oh no, I was loving this. Yeah, I got no side in this fight right now. Slightly lean Strickland here. I like the over 3.5 at minus 152. I think if Strickland wins, it goes a little longer. I think that first round will tell us a lot of how this fight's going to go. Strickland only facing 1 takedown in his second middleweight run. The last guy to take him down was 5 years ago in Kamaru Usman. We'll find out quick how good his takedown defense is going to be. But I think it holds up here, and he pot shots him to a decision, similar to the Uriah Hall fight.
I'm right there with you, Prodigy. And I think at plus 1,600, or fight ends round 5 is plus 1,600. But also Jack Hermansson round 1 sub is plus 1,600. So I think that if you like Jack, that's a great way to target it. Because he literally did that exact same thing to Kelvin Gastelum, spazzed on him. He's done it to black belts before, but I do think his grappling is most potent early because he's a power grappler. So if he doesn't get that sub game going early, I would think it's more likely that Jack is looking for like a positional TKO. And that I don't think is the most high, percentage outcome, but I do think that that's the typical way a Jack Hermansson fight plays out. He tries to sub you early. If he can't, then he looks to go move on to those TKOs from top position, which he has underrated ground and pound. That's the other thing to mention about him is if Jack gets on top of Sean in the mount, that's a problem because this guy opens up on you with elbows and hooks, and Sean is a little too willing to eat damage. But I think broadly speaking, this is a heck of a main event because both guys have finishing potential. Both guys have some questions to answer. Jack Hermansson wants to remain a contender in this division. That's going to run through Sean Strickland right now because the guy's surging. He's on a 4-fight win streak. And, Jack, he's kind of lost some big fights already. So these are, he's not going to get the easy fights. He's going to get drawn from the bottom of the barrel, but he's come through as a dog before. And I think that he is certainly an interesting underdog here at that big plus money number, but across the market, he's been getting some action. So we're going to have to see how this line plays out by fight time. But I think overall, we've done a great job covering the card. I couldn't have done it without you guys. I really appreciate it. Big time commitment to the show today. We're running on just about 2 hours. So with respect to your time, I want to give my guests an opportunity to let the people know where can they find you and any thoughts that you have to close out the show today.
Yeah, they can find me at notorious_picks on Twitter. I'm fairly active, not as active as some people, but yeah, I mean, it's been a pleasure to be on the show. I love, breaking down fights with Liam, and it's nice putting a face to Prodigy. Now I know how he looks. He's a great guy, so it was a good time. I hope all of us have a good, profitable night, as well as your, supporters of your channel. And yeah, I mean, let's catch the tickets and enjoy the violence.
Absolutely, my brother. Let's get those dogs barking on Saturday night. That's what I want to see. Prodigy, how about you, brother? Where can the people find you?
You guys go ahead, follow me on Twitter, Prodigy MMA. It's always nice chopping it up with you guys. Definitely excited for this card. I'm starting to get chirped in the comments, so it might be time to go here. Apparently, I'm 12 years old now, so follow me on Twitter.
I can assure you that's not the case. One of the smartest guys in the game. Appreciate your time, my man, Notorious. We've been holding it down, done a bunch of these streams. Always a pleasure to chop up these fights with you. I think that we got a lot of good opportunities from a betting perspective. I think we got a lot of fun in store from a fighting perspective. So I'm ready to tune in on Saturday night. I hope that you guys, whether you decide to support the plays, whether you go against them, I hope you feel like you got smarter from watching the show today. That's always what we're trying to do, put you in a better position to succeed on your bets on Saturday night. So God bless you all. Enjoy those fights. This has been another great episode of Liam Picks Fights. It's brought to you by PrizePicks. If you want, go ahead, get that promo. Liam is going to deposit match you 100% up to $100. So thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that you guys have a profitable Saturday night, and we'll see you on the other side. Come back next week. We'll have all the same fun again. Take care, folks.